This very unique DNA is now placed within the range of the field of a human heart. Human DNA, when it is in our cells, it is coiled in very specific kinds of ways. These are in a bona fide scientific laboratory. These questions, this is where they're being asked. So here's what they did. So here is the experiment. This very unique DNA is now placed within the range of the field of a human heart that we described in an earlier episode. Every human heart, if you recall, has a field of energy that extends beyond the physical heart for a distance between 5 to 8 feet. And that field, it is an electrical and a magnetic field that we can measure with conventional equipment. So the question is, through that field, is the DNA influenced by the emotions of another person? Can our emotions actually influence the DNA in our bodies? Before I tell you the experiment, let me just share a little bit about why this is important. Human DNA, when it is in our cells, it is coiled in very specific kinds of ways. And what scientists have found is that in the presence of certain emotions that we would call negative emotions, and I don't really like to use that term, but I'm going to use it to be clear on what we're talking about. So when we talk about emotions, for example, of anger or hate or jealousy or rage or frustration, those that we would typically consider as negative emotions, they have an effect on the DNA within our bodies. And the effect is that in the presence of those emotions, the DNA is actually, the coil is tightened. It's tightened like a little knot. And that's important because when it is tightened in this way, the DNA does not express to its fullest capacity. So the negative emotions tighten the coil and prevent the DNA from expressing the fullest capacity of whatever it is that it is expressing, whether it's our immune response or our anti-aging hormones or whatever it is. The DNA simply cannot do its full complement of what it's designed to do. Scientists are asking in the laboratory, does the stuff we're made of have an effect on the stuff our world is made of? This is where it starts to sound like science fiction, or at least something that an advanced yogi would be working with. But these are in a bona fide scientific laboratory, these questions, this is where they're being asked. So here's what they did. They took human DNA and they placed it inside the vessel. And then they measured the DNA again to see what would happen. And they measured the photons again to see what would happen. And the results of this experiment changed the way we have been conditioned to think about ourselves and the world. Because the photons went from being completely random when they were first measured, and in the presence of the human DNA, the photons are no longer random, they are ordered. They followed precisely the geometry of the DNA. The DNA was having a direct effect on the photons. The stuff we're made of is having a direct effect on the stuff our world is made of. Just like some of our most ancient and cherished indigenous and spiritual traditions have always told us that we are connected to the world. So this is the first experiment. Human DNA has a measurable effect on the stuff our world is made of. Now I want you to see the way the scientists responded to this. So I'm going to read this to you directly. In the journal Nanobiology, it was published in 1995, the way the scientists described this, they said that the photons were described as behaving, and this is a quote, surprisingly and counterintuitively. Counterintuitively. It's counterintuitive because the scientific thinking is that everything is separate from everything else, and there is no stuff to convey any effect from the DNA to the matter. That's why it's counterintuitive to the science. But the next piece is what I find particularly interesting. I'm going to invite you to listen to the language. It says we are forced to accept the possibility. They're saying that they are forced. They're not saying it looks like, or it appears, or this is what we found.